The clang of metal against metal echoed through the cavernous hangar bay as I wiped the sweat from my brow. Sparks danced in the dim light, and the faint hum of machinery vibrated in my chest. I had seen ships in disrepair before, but none like this. Sleek, impossibly advanced, and clearly not of human origin, the vessel lay open before me as though it were a living creature, wounded and vulnerable. I had been working as a mechanic on the fringe worlds for years. The kind of places where law was flexible and credits were hard-earned. My reputation was modest, my skills sufficient, and my clientele usually limited to scavengers and smuggler crews who didn't ask questions. But then she arrived. She came without warning, a figure cloaked in a silvery cloak that shimmered as if the stars themselves were stitched into the fabric. Her helmet reflected the pale neon lights of the hangar, hiding her face until she finally removed it. What I saw made me forget to breathe. She was perfect, not just beautiful, though she was, but commanding. Every movement exuded authority and precision. Her eyes were deep violet, almost unsettlingly so, and they seemed to weigh every detail of the hangar, the ship, and, eventually, me. "I need it fixed," she said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that made even seasoned engineers hesitate. "Fully operational. No compromises." I nodded, swallowing hard. I can do that. It'll take time, but... "Time is a luxury," she interrupted, her eyes narrowing. 3 days. After that, it leaves this station whether it's perfect or not. I glanced at the ship again. It wasn't just damaged. It had sustained near-fatal injuries. The hull plating was torn in multiple areas, and the energy conduits glowed faintly, as though the ship were bleeding from within. I had no idea who she was, or why anyone of her status would trust me, a human mechanic, with such an invaluable vessel. 3 days, I muttered. "It'll take everything." She gave a small nod and then, to my shock, handed me a small, sleek device. "You'll need this. It interfaces with the ship's core. Without it, the repairs are impossible." I took it, my hands shaking. The device pulsed in my grip like a heartbeat, warm and alive. She watched me carefully, but her expression didn't soften. She turned, her cloak flowing behind her like liquid silver, and for the first time, she smiled. A small, fleeting gesture, but it left me unsettled. For the next 12 hours, I barely slept. I examined the ship in minute detail, taking careful readings, patching minor breaches, and rerouting energy flows. It was more advanced than anything I had ever seen. Humans hadn't even begun to approach the level of engineering this vessel embodied. I spent the first day simply trying not to break anything critical. The second day, the princess, or Empress, returned. I hadn't asked. Something told me not to. She entered quietly, watching me work without interrupting. I felt her gaze on my back like a physical weight, pressing me to focus, to do my best. "I've never trusted a human with something like this before," she said finally, her voice soft but unwavering. "Most would ruin it in an hour, and many would try to steal it." I paused, not looking at her. "I'm not most humans, and I won't ruin it. Not your ship." She stepped closer, and I could feel her presence fill the space. "Good," she said. "Because it's not just a ship. It's a symbol. If it falls into the wrong hands," her words trailed off, but the implication was clear. This ship carried more than just firepower. It carried authority, perhaps even the fate of entire star systems. By the third day, the repairs were nearing completion. I had patched the hull, recalibrated the energy cores, and stabilized the navigation systems. But as I worked, I realized something else. The ship responded differently to my touch than any machine should. When I ran my hands along its conduits, I could feel subtle pulses, like the ship was alive in some strange, sentient way. It hummed beneath my fingertips, reacting to my intentions. "Do you feel it?" she asked suddenly, appearing beside me without warning. I jumped slightly, but kept my hand steady. "Feel what?" I said, trying to mask my awe. "The ship," she said. "It's aware of you. Not consciously, but it senses your understanding." I froze. It's alive?" "In a way," she said, her eyes glinting. "And it trusts you. Don't betray that trust." I swallowed hard. The weight of the responsibility hit me fully for the first time. I wasn't just fixing a ship. I was safeguarding an entire legacy. That night, as the final hours approached, she returned again. The hangar was quiet, bathed in the soft hum of the ship's reawakened core. I had finished the last calibrations, and the vessel now shone under the hangar lights, whole and formidable once more. She stepped close enough that I could see the faintest trace of something unspoken in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or gratitude, or something more. "You did well," she said softly. "Better than I expected. I knew I could trust you, but I didn't expect this." I nodded, feeling the tension of the past 3 days finally release from my shoulders. It was an honor. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hangar seemed to shrink around us, the hum of the ship growing louder, as if acknowledging the bond forged in those frantic hours. Then she did something I never expected. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to mine. It was brief, gentle, a whisper of a kiss, but it carried something heavier than words: trust, recognition, perhaps even a silent promise. "I'll come back for you, human," she whispered, stepping back just far enough to smile. "This isn't the end." I could only stare. My chest was tight, my thoughts scrambled, and for the first time in my life, I felt the universe was both impossibly large and intimately close at the same time. The ship's engines roared to life. She had already initiated the launch sequence, but she lingered, watching me. I wanted to ask questions, to demand explanations, but I could barely form words. "Don't worry," she said, reading my expression. "I'll return." And when I do, she left the sentence unfinished, letting the promise hang in the air. Then she moved with impossible speed, boarding her ship and taking control of the helm. The hangar doors opened, revealing the endless expanse of space beyond. Stars stretched into streaks of light as the vessel lifted effortlessly. I felt a pang of longing, a human sense of loss that I couldn't explain. She looked down once, a small, almost imperceptible nod, and then she was gone, streaking into the cosmos like a comet. I stood there for a long time, the smell of burning ozone in my nose and the aftertaste of her presence lingering in the air. I had fixed her ship, yes, but I had also been marked by her trust, and that kiss, brief as it was, felt like a tether pulling me toward a future I couldn't yet imagine. In the days that followed, the hangar returned to its usual quiet routine. My work resumed, credits were earned, and repairs continued on less exotic vessels. But nothing felt the same. Every ship I worked on now felt different. I approached each task with care, thinking of her, of the trust she had placed in me, and of the silent promise that I would see her again. Weeks passed. The universe moved on, indifferent to the small human mechanics and the dramas of alien royalty. But then, during a routine repair on a freighter, I received a signal. At first, it was garbled, strange frequencies and pulses that didn't correspond to any human communication protocol. Curiosity piqued. I interfaced with it, letting the device interpret the signal. And then her voice came through, unmistakable, soft, commanding, intimate. "Human, you did well. The galaxy needs you. Come to the coordinates I've sent. Trust me." My heart raced. She had returned. Not just as an empress, not just as a mysterious figure from the edge of civilization, but as someone who believed in me, who had entrusted me with something no one else could handle. And now, she was calling me into a larger story, one that would take me far beyond the hangars, beyond the known space of humanity, into the heart of interstellar intrigue. I packed my tools, my few personal belongings, and took one last look at the hangar. The stars outside seemed brighter, sharper, as if they were aware of what was coming. As I stepped aboard the ship that would carry me to her, I couldn't help but think of that first kiss. It had been brief, fleeting, yet it had changed everything. It had been a promise, a challenge, and a declaration all at once. And I knew, without doubt, that the story between us was only just beginning. The ship lifted off, leaving the gravity of my homeworld behind. The stars stretched and twisted as faster-than-light engines engaged. I watched the expanse of space ahead and realized, with a human mix of fear and excitement, that the universe had chosen me for something greater. And somewhere, far ahead, she waited. The alien Empress who had trusted a human with her most precious possession. And in her eyes, I knew I would find not just adventure, but a connection that transcended species, politics, and the cold expanse of the galaxy. She had left me with a kiss. But it wasn't a goodbye. It was the beginning, and I would not fail her.